This is Over 50s Wisdom, and today we're going to talk about career changes post the age of 50, but career changes that have been brought about, or rather forced upon you. Alan, tell us your story. Hello.
Hello. Well, my story is basically all my life I wanted to be a paramedic, and I did a few jobs in retail while I was waiting to get to that point. So I served 10 years as a paramedic, and unfortunately, due just to some corrective surgery, which went sadly wrong on my arm, I was forced to retire. So did
Right.
10 years
Okay.
and
But
retired in
okay.
2002.
So you did 10 years service as a paramedic,
Yes.
and then what was wrong with your arm? What happened?
I had an old typical Welshman, really, old rugby injury,
Yeah.
with scrum collapsed on my arm, and it was a funny shape. So it was recommended to do a bit of corrective surgery. Unfortunately, I had 6 goes at it, and it was left worse than it was to start off with. And I lost the feeling from the elbow to the fingers as well. So unfortunately, I couldn't do the job anymore. It was quite complicated because I damaged my arm really badly when the scrum collapsed when I was 18, and unfortunately, we had a consultant back then, and his nickname was Dutta the Cutter because he wasn't a particularly very good orthopedic surgeon. And it's funny, my arms was all sorts of shapes. When I used to put my arms straight, they used to stick out to the side, and they reckon that everyone should have arms like that because shopping bags don't hit your legs when you're walking. But but
Why
he's
did it,
caused
why
he's
did the
caused
operation go so badly wrong?
um well, looking at it, it was probably a combination of trying to fix it in different ways. I didn't know at the time when you have a form that you sign when you have an operation. Halfway down, there's a box that they don't point out that says if they open you up and decide that they can do something else, then they can without asking you.
Oh.
So I now cross that box. I say no. Whatever the operation you said you were going to do, you do now. But it's
So,
it's
so, so you didn't cross that box, and so they did something different to what you expected.
yeah. They tried to repair it differently, which in hindsight was never going to work. And then they tried to repair it again. And then I was sent for physio, and the physiotherapist broke my arm then, as well after the second op. So it was a bit of a it was calamitous. I mean, now it literally I think see it locks there, it doesn't go any further than there. So I've only got 90 degrees, and it doesn't fully straighten. But but no, it doesn't slow me down. It doesn't slow me down.
Well, I think if anything, it speeded you up.
Yeah. That's probably a little bit of my ADHD. Is probably I can't switch off. I've got to be busy all the time. Yeah, but it's like anything else. You work around most things.
Right. I mean, that must have been a terrible surprise or terrible shock. I mean, bear in mind you were working, within the NHS.
Yes, I mean, especially when it was something you always wanted to do, and it really felt like the rug being pulled out from under my feet. And I did go for a real dark patch when I finished because it was quite disappointing to say the least.
And when did this happen?
So that was my first operation was in 2000, and fully retired in 2002.
Right. Okay. So you're 55 now.
Yeah.
So what, you were unable, literally unable physically to do the job because being a paramedic is pretty physical, isn't it?
Yes, physical and also the dexterity, because as I said, I can't feel from my elbow down, my little finger and my ring finger basically, and a sort of band all the way to my elbow, and I lost about 70% of the use of the strength in my arm as well. So as you said, I couldn't physically do the job anymore.
Right. So when you say you went through a bit of a dark patch, that's probably an understatement.
Yes, I mean, I suppose mentally, I went through a really dark patch. As I said, it was when it's something you want to do as a child and suddenly it gets pulled out. I went through a really dark patch for a number of years, actually. And it wasn't until probably around about 2013 that I pulled myself out of that and decided that it's time to sort of get back into the game, so to speak.
And how did you do that? And what did you do during the dark patch, those period of what, a few years?
During that time, we swapped careers because at the time my wife was at home, bringing the kids up, and I was working. So we actually physically swapped, and she went back to work for a little while. We had our boy in 2004, and I brought him up badly. She will probably say. because he's but that's another story. But we basically swapped careers, and I stayed at home and became a stay-at-home dad, and she went back to work, and that's how we moved forward in that time.
And how was that as a stay-at-home dad when you were going to the school gates with all the mums, I suppose?
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? Because it is a sort of situation that not very many people find themselves in. I probably was one of only a handful of dads that were there. It was mainly women, and you always feel a bit lonely because they all have their sort of their friendship groups and stuff like that, and you're just the standalone dad waiting for your boy to come out like on your own, just not talking to anyone. But yeah, I think I did okay. He's 18 now, and he's I'd like to think he's grounded. I'm not sure my wife would agree with me, but yeah.
Well, I mean, in a way, we're going to get on to what you're doing now. But I mean, that role that you played as a stay-at-home dad was a pretty important role. And I think in many ways you were very lucky to have that experience.
Yes, absolutely. It was a fabulous experience because the one thing about being a paramedic was you do miss a lot of times of your children growing up. So my two girls, I missed Christmas days, I missed birthdays, I missed all kinds of stuff, and it gave me an opportunity to have sort of like overload of experience with my third child.
You could probably write a book with it.
I always describe them as my favorite oldest, my favorite youngest, and my favorite middle. So there's no favorite. But yeah, it did give me that experience that I'd lost in my years as a paramedic, basically.
Okay, so that was career number one forced upon you because of the calamitous operation. What about career number two? What are you doing now?
So in 2013, we had quite a deep conversation, and money was tight. Our savings had gone, and I literally had £25 in my wallet, and I decided someone quite said to me that if you want to walk on water, you'd have to get out of the boat first.
Good advice.
Okay, so I did. So I took a stall in an antique centre, £25 a week.
So you had an interest in antiques?
Yes, it was on a throwaway comment. We went to a VW festival, and there was a chap there selling suitcases, and someone in a throwaway comment said, if you could sell suitcases at like £25 a case and undercut the whole country, basically, you could clean up. And I thought, I see these around, and I thought, I got £25, I'll have a go. And I literally did. I literally opened this store with about 50 or so suitcases. And for the first 6 weeks, I didn't sell a thing until the owner felt sorry for me and bought a case. And I kept pushing. My wife was very supportive at the time. She thought, because I'd worked in retail previously before being a paramedic. So everyone said I had a bit of an extrovert nature and I could talk easily to people. So it seemed like a natural choice to go into. And basically then, so I moved within that centre to a dearer space, really sort of just struggling to pay the bills, basically. And then we had one lucky break where we sold a suitcase to a well-known entertainment company. And I just said, thank you very much, and give them an email saying thanks ever so much for the purchase. And they came back and asked for more. And we ended up doing over 250 suitcases to that one entertainment centre.
Fabulous.
And where it all went well for us was the fact that the guy turns up. I remember the guy turned up on a Friday when their accounts department had gone home, and he wanted to take everything and not pay for it. I was like, "Ooh, this is a big step of faith." But he said, I can assure you, and he checked out and everything. But he then paid on the Monday, and kind of put us into the system. And suddenly, other TV companies and stuff were knocking on our doors, and the snowball, like a snowball coming down a hill, it got bigger and bigger and bigger. So by 2016, we moved into our first shop, which was in Pontypool Town Centre, a very small shop. And then we had 2 visits from Antiques Road Trip, which was nice.
Oh, very good.
There we are. And then in 2019, we moved to the shop we're in now, which is an old Grade 2 listed bank over 5 floors. And we now have 31 traders in situ, some rent out spaces, and now I'm looking for my my next building, basically, to move on to that. And that's, so the business has literally exploded, if that makes sense, over a small period of years.
Allun, it's an amazing story. So from being a paramedic doing exactly what you wanted to do to this terrible calamitous operation and a dark patch now to doing something that I can see by the look on your face, in actual fact, you really do enjoy it and it's successful. Would you change anything?
Um, Probably not. No, because the one thing I took from being a paramedic was I wasn't satisfied with knowing just the training. So I can remember straight after I qualified, I bought a book from the States called Emergency Care in the Streets, which took your training to another level. And then I wanted more from that, and I bought more books, and I would read and I'd read, and I'd want to study and want to be the best paramedic I possibly could. And I took that ethos into when I came into the antiques field, and thought, I want to know, I want to be like a sponge and keep soaking up and soaking up. And it's that's what I love about this business is every day is a school day. Every day you learn something new, and I've lost my shirt a few times, which I'm sure many dealers would sympathise with that. But the idea is you don't make that same mistake twice, hopefully. And I've just progressed and just pushed and pushed using the ethos from being a paramedic into this business, and I just love learning about the whole trade. I avoid certain parts, but because I think they're quite deep, like coins and stamps, I really shy away from. But in the whole, I would say I'm getting. I wouldn't say I've got, because that would be a wrong thing to say. I'm getting a good knowledge and understanding of the trade, and I'm building every day, which is great. Which is why I love the job so much.
And I think that's exactly the right attitude to have, because my background obviously is antiques, and the people I've met over the years that say they know everything really don't know enough. And the people that know a lot always say they don't know enough. And because and so really you found the perfect business. If you want to keep on learning, you actually need 1,000 lifetimes to know nearly enough. So it suits your nature. Now, what about the physical side of things today? What's the future with the arm? Is it going to get better?
Well, the arm is about as good as it can be. I still struggle with it. Actually, I'm having surgery this Friday on my shoulder to fix a rotator cuff because it's all connected. But we have a great bunch of volunteers within the shop who do all the lifting and carrying and stuff like that. So that's absolutely brilliant. One thing I forgot to mention was when my wife went back to work, when we sort of swapped, my intention was always to pull her back out. And when we opened this shop in 2019, we had the opportunity to actually pull her out of work, and now we actually run the business side by side. So we
Wow.
work together. And that is such a blessing, because to have someone they say whenever you have a partnership, you should always be your wife or someone you know really well. And we just work so well together. She balances the books, I spend the money. So she shakes her finger at me a few times. But that's what we've taken. That's the one thing that I sort of enjoy more than anything about the business, is being able to actually work together with my wife as well.
It's a remarkable story, and the circle has been closed, I think, because you're in a happy place, a successful business, and you're working with your wife. It sounds a great tale. What advice would you give to people then who, their career is suddenly taken away from them due to something like this? You talked about being in a dark place. What's the best advice you can offer?
My best advice, when you're in a dark place, talk to people, talk to friends, and find groups you can tap into to talk to. Talking always helps. And with regards to, I was thrown on the rubbish heap basically. I tried to get a job, and they were telling me, well, you've got a paramedic qualification and you can't actually take that to anything else. So there was no other sort of industry that I could particularly go into, and I didn't really want to go into retail and stacking shelves in Tesco and stuff like that. I wanted something that would give me a sort of like job satisfaction. So the piece of advice I would give to someone is that you're only limited by the limitations you put on yourself. If I can do this, I had zero knowledge of antiques in 2013, absolutely zero. Now I would say probably got 13% knowledge, but I've got enough to get me. But what I'm saying is, we're never too old to learn new tricks, to learn a new trade. And I think, as I said in the beginning, if you want to walk on water, the first thing you got to do is get out of the boat. You've got to convince yourself that you can do this, and just tap into so many. Like, social media has exploded over the last couple of years, And there's so many sort of connections you can make through social media, through groups and meetings, and meeting people in person. And you can learn so much from them. Be a sponge. That's what I say to everyone. Just soak up from people. Be a sponge.
You know what? I think that's a really good piece of advice. Be a sponge, no matter what you do. Just and I think also, would you agree that being a sponge is easy if you're doing something that you're really interested in? So find something that you're interested in, and then it's easy to be a sponge because you can retain that information because you're having a good time doing it.
Absolutely. I mean, my dad always said to me that if you find a job that you like, you'll never work a day in your life.
Absolutely.
Because you just like, you enjoy it. And every day I look forward to getting out of bed in the mornings, and I look forward to going to work. I mean, every day's different. There's no 2 days are the same. You know, and the stuff that comes over the counter that's so interesting, the people we meet. We have a great volunteer with us, and he loves coming in because he just loves talking to people, and he's him an outlet as well. So like he's 71 now, I think he is, and he said that he'd gone to a dark place, and we said, no, just come along and just come in and just have a cup of coffee with us, you know, spend time. And next, you know, he'd gone from having a cup of coffee to being with us every day. And he's an integral part of the team now. And he loves coming in, talking to people, meeting people. And that's something that's motivated him as well.
Wonderful. Allun, it's a great delight to speak to you. I think just by listening to your story, people will be able to take so much from it. And it's like subliminal messages you're sending through. It's all positivity. And you've really made a great success of Ragamuffins. I know of it, and I will come and see you at some point. And I'll put a link actually in the video description to the business. So wonderful, Allun. Thanks for telling your story.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Great to see you.